must not be introduced into the church and married to the church, forming a band of unity. Through this means, the church will become indeed corrupt, and as stated in Revelation, a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. So when the world is introduced into the church and married to the church, forming a band of unity, then the church will become a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Now, what does the book of Revelation defines a cage of every unclean and hateful bird? Now, if we go to Revelation 18, it says here, and after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon. So this mighty angel comes down and he announced, Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. Why the Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen? And it's become the habitations of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. The word Babylon is a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. You know, in other words, every church that is in apostasy or that is worldly, it is like a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. Do you know why? You know, the members that are in these churches, they are just like in a cage. When you are in a cage, you don't have no freedom. You are being controlled. Just like when you put the bird in a little cage, the bird cannot fly. The bird can only fly a certain space there inside a cage. The same thing with the members today of every denomination. They are like in a cage. They are being controlled. You know, they don't have the freedom to expand their knowledge. They're being only taught every Sabbath school, the same kind of they have a uniformity of probably study that they're doing. So they're not able to expand that knowledge. Why? Because they are like in a cage, and that is Babylon. And also another quotations here from the Patriarchs and Prophets 124. The term Babylon, which prophecy Revelation 14 verse 8 and Revelation 18 verse 2 applies to the world-loving churches of the last days. See, I heard people saying that, no, the church can never become Babylon. Even if it's worldly, it is not Babylon. But the definition is so clear that when a church becomes worldly, it is Babylon. The same thing, this is actually applicable to us as well. If we are worldly, if we actually enjoy the pleasures of the world, then we are also Babylon. That's it. It is applicable to any church. To any church. Okay? Now, another thing. It does not apply. Some people say, no, it does not apply to the Adventists, to the Seventh-day Adventists. Well, even though they're worldly, they are in apostasy, it still does not apply. And the reason why they say that, because Ellen G. White said, do not call the church Babylon. They always quote the quotations regarding in testimonies to ministers. Ellen G. White said, this is another question. Why did Ellen G. White say, do not call the Seventh-day Adventist Church Babylon in 1893? Remember, regarding the testimonies, time and place must be considered. Okay? You cannot just apply the 1863 quotations and use it today still. Just like the Jewish church. Just like the Jewish church. When God called the Jewish church his peculiar people, his own people, that was in Moses' time. Can you apply that verse and use it even today? No, you cannot. That was only in the olden time. That was before. They were God's people before. Remember that in Exodus 19, God said, if you will obey me, then you will be a peculiar treasure unto myself. You will be my people. If that was long before. Now, what happened to the Jewish church? They were rejected. But can you still use that quotations to prove that the Jewish church is still God's people? No, because that was long time. The same thing with the Adventists. There were quotations actually that the Seventh-day Adventists were chosen by God. That was long time ago. They were being called by God. 1863, they were organized. They were given the name because it was a standing rebuke, you know, to the world. But why did Ellen G. White say, do not call the church Babylon in 1893? Do you know why? Because there was a brother named Brother Stanton. Okay, Brother Stanton actually published a pamphlet called The Loud Cry. And what was the pamphlet actually? The pamphlet was calling the SD church as Babylon, calling God's people out of every Seventh-day Adventist church because the church was already Babylon. That was 1893. Brother Stanton, who actually instigated that pamphlet, he was the one who published that pamphlet. Now, did Ellen G. White rebuke Stanton? Yes, she did rebuke Stanton. Okay. Did Ellen White respond to the accusation of Brother Stanton? Yes, it was recorded in this book, TM 58 to 59. Okay. It says here, this was written March 23, 1893. Dear Brother Stanton, S. I address to you a few lines. I am not in harmony with the position that you have taken. My brother, I learned that you are taking the position that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is Babylon, that all that would be saved must come out of her. You are not the only man the devil has deceived in this matter. My brother, if you are teaching that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is Babylon, you are wrong. God has not given you any such message to bear. This quotation was given in 1893, and people still uses this quotation to prove that the church can never become Babylon. No, that was in the past. Remember, every promises of God is what? All promises of God are alike conditional. It's actually based on condition. Every promise is based upon condition of obedience. That's it. If, remember Jesus said, John 14:15, if you love me, keep my commandments. That's it. Everything is conditional. Even though we have that name, if we have that name given to us, Seventh-day Adventist, remember Christ was a Seventh-day Adventist. Paul was a Seventh-day Adventist because he was keeping the Seventh-day Sabbath. Enoch was a Seventh-day Adventist because he was keeping the Seventh-day Sabbath. But he was obedient, and that's why Enoch was taken to heaven. So anyone who has the name, if they don't actually produce any fruits that they are actually practicing that, that faith they have, then they are not actually, they are just nominal Adventists. So, but at the time, 1893, Ellen G. White actually trying to protect the integrity of the Seventh-day Adventists, because at the time the church was not Babylon yet. That was in 1893. That's why he actually responded to Stanton that you are not the only man the devil has deceived in this matter. Why did Ellen G. White rebuke Stanton? Okay, this is actually 2 pages actually of the letter of Ellen G. White addressed to Stanton, and this is, let me go to the second page actually. Okay, this is the second part. It says here, my brother, I learned that you are taking the position that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is Babylon, and that all that would be saved must come out of her. You are not the only man the devil has deceived in this matter. For the last 40 years, one man after another has arisen, claiming that the Lord has sent him with the same message. But let me tell you, as I have told them, that this message you are proclaiming is one of the satanic delusions designed to create confusion among the churches. This quotation was given in 1893, and people still uses this to prove that the Adventists today, Seventh-day Adventists today, even though they're worldly, they are an apostasy, that you cannot call them Babylon. That was 1893 when Ellen G. White was actively protecting the church, because at the time the church was not Babylon yet. So another quotations here from TM 59. My brother, if you are teaching that the Seventh-day Adventist Church is Babylon, you are wrong. That was 1893 when Ellen G. White was saying, she was still alive. So do not call the church Babylon at the time. Okay? It says here, God has not given you any such message to bear. So why did Ellen G. White rebuke Stanton not to call the SDA Church Babylon? The reason is that, it says here, this is taken from TM 22, paragraph 2. How is it that these pamphlets denouncing the Seventh-day Adventist Church as Babylon were scattered abroad everywhere at the very time? It says here, at the very time. What time was that? That was 1893. At the very time, that means at the present time, 1893, when that church was receiving the outpouring of the Holy Spirit of God. So at that very time, 1893, Stanton was accusing the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Babylon, when the church was still receiving the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. That's why Ellen G. White said, do not call the church at that very time, because that church was still receiving the outpouring of the Holy Spirit of God. How is it that men can be so deceived as to imagine that the loud cry consists in calling the people of God out from the fellowship of a church that is enjoying a season of refreshing? In other words, the church was still enjoying the seasons of refreshing, that they have the Holy Spirit. Not all actually who rejected the 1888 message. There were still Adventists who actually embraced the message. So they received the refreshing. Oh, may these deceived souls come into the current and receive the blessing and be endued with power from on high. So these quotations, they use this. Actually, they sent me this message. There's a brother actually who communicate to me, and they always use these quotations. I said, brother, maybe you can present to me a message. Then after your presentation, then I will present you something again. And if you will just, let's have time together and study it. Do not just, accept one side. Listen to the other side so that you will understand. So I invited him actually that maybe if they would like to present, yes, go ahead. We will listen to your presentation, but we will also present our side so that you will learn something. You will understand, So 1893, the church was not Babylon yet. But 10 years actually after that, 10 years before Ellen G. White died, that was 1893, when Ellen G. White said that the church was not Babylon yet, but 1903, 10 years after that, Ellen G. White denounced the Seventh-day Adventist Church Babylon. That's it. That was 1903. 10 years after 1893, it was not actually her, it was Christ himself denounced the Seventh-day Adventist Church a harlot. What is a harlot? A harlot is Babylon. Okay, now let's go to the quotations. Let me go to the next slide here. This was 1903 when actually Christ denounced the Seventh-day Adventist Church a harlot. Okay, it was actually written in, this was written volume 8 of the Testimonies, 247 to 250. April 21, 1903. This was actually in St. Helena, California, when she wrote this. It says here, our position in the world is not what it should be. We are far from where we should have been had our Christian experience been in harmony with the light and the opportunities given us. Had we from the beginning constantly pressed onward and upward, had we walked in the light that has been given us, had we followed on to know the Lord, our path would have grown brighter and brighter. But many of those who have had special light are so conformed to the world that they can scarcely be distinguished